Hello and welcome back, and that is right, it's time for Black Friday once again, and we're doing another video where we are talking about the deals that we could find across different regions of the world that we would personally go for, myself and Eddie. This is something we'll be working on for the majority of the week, but also something we've been doing for the better part of 3 to 4 years. It's our way of ultimately recommending things that we've either talked about on the channel or ones that we are hoping to review soon. But moreover, this is kind of to cut through the chaff of all the stuff that's, is it a deal, is it not a deal, and ultimately during Black Friday, so that you get things right first time. And of course, all the products that we can talk about today are linked in the description. We have not monetized this video, but those links are affiliated. So if you do use those links, it does result in a small kickback coming here to the channel for me and Eddie, which helps us carrying on doing what we do. The free advice section, all of the videos, all of that. It's our little fundraising effort, and hopefully everybody wins. But without further ado, a few things straight off the bat. Number one, what you're seeing here on screen is my updated mega deal page here. This is one that I've been updating over the course of the last few days, and every time I've found a deal, many of these that we're going to talk about today, I've added them here onto this super article. It's linked at the very top in the description below, so if you don't want to watch the whole video, although it should be chapterized along the bottom, you can find pretty much the top of the top stuff there and save yourself a lot of time. On top of that, if you're still on the fence about what you need to buy and need to quickly do some revision, we can go ahead over here. We've got our best of the year. We've published those in the background. Got some videos coming up in those next month and talking about the best NASes, the best switches, the best this, that and the other for different purposes. It's all linked on there. Alternatively, if you wish, you can go to our individual threads there for each of the individual brands, as well as moving forward, we've got the hard drive related article here, which goes through different hard drives and the best ones you can go for on your setup, or you can go for the Megathread there. This is one that Eddie's working on. There is just so much to do. But other stuff, just before we get onto the deals, I'm really sorry to occupy a little bit more of your time there. Do not buy Sandisk SSDs, the Extreme Pros to be precise, today on Black Friday. Now, these are drives that have been on offer on Black Friday and Prime Day and all of that lark every year for years. I myself have recommended them. However, there are definitely something amiss going on at WD and Sandisk with regard to the construction of some of these drives, and there's a lot of back and forth. There's even legal disputes that are being raised right now, and although you definitely will see them on promo during Black Friday, I heartily recommend you do not go for them. I will be talking about external hard drives and SSDs later in the video for you to check out depending on your region, but although you may be very tempted to go for these drives, I strongly recommend giving them a miss. Other stuff I want to touch on, UnRAID is currently doing discount licenses and discount support. That will be linked in the description below as well. And of course, Plex and their Plex Pass is currently seeing a discount during Black Friday. So if you're thinking of getting that lifetime pass, I know we've discussed about Plex and them changing their business model, but for the sake of 89 Nika, and again I'm saying Nika, dollars, obviously wherever you are in the world it will change, that's a pretty darn good offer overall. Another thing, we're going to be talking about Terramaster periodically throughout this video. Regardless of where you are in the world, take my word for it, Terramaster is on sale where you are. They are probably one of, in the world of data storage, one of the keenest discount merchants out there, and they already have got a value position now. Although I will touch on a number of their solutions throughout the course of this video, and we will go through different retailers. I will say that I have put together all of their offers in one article. So if you were going to go for a Terramaster anyway, and you don't want to have to dick around on different regions or search histories, just use this article link below. It goes through every single one that's on offer region by region. So although I will touch on some of them, utilize this to go for the super thread there to find out more about it. And finally, a little bit of housekeeping there. If you do see an offer and you're a bit on the fence about whether it's a good offer, rather than spend ages doing research or watching lovely videos like this, I strongly recommend two things. One, using a website called camel.com. Take the URL of the Amazon or other retailer. They have started integrating other outlets on their site. Take the URL, copy that URL, carry it over, copy it into that bar, go ahead, and this will give you a timeline on that product. Now, again, sometimes, we've talked about this in other videos, retailers will relist their products to kind of wipe the history books a little bit. But say in the case of this 14 TB, right now Amazon is saying this is a Black Friday deal, it's 16% off, woohoo, we'll go in and we have a look down and we can see that actually this product has only been listed for, again, not a vast amount of time. It's been somewhere between 3 to 4 months. Even though this product's been around for quite a long time, they've clearly relisted it there. But nevertheless, as you can see from that pricing chart there, it has listed typically much higher than that 259 price point there. So at least in the context of that page, that looks like a reasonable offer. So do take the time, if you're a little bit on the fence, take the extra moment. I know these things feel like they're super hasty. Just head over to camel.com, and I'm sick of saying that name, Jesus, and double check the pricing there on average to make sure of it. And the other thing, some products will have a plethora of reviews behind them. So for example, if we look up Black Friday on here, we go for Black Friday deals, go for the deal register. We're just going to arbitrarily pick a device out of the blue. We're going to go for this weird cooking pot, why not? And we're going to go ahead and we're going to copy that URL. We can see there this has had 44,000 reviews, right? Well, this is where FakeSpot comes in. FakeSpot, you can get a plugin if you choose. Go in, stick the URL into FakeSpot, and it uses AI analysis to basically boil those reviews down. It also removes the fake reviews, removes the times when reviews are actually for the wrong product and have been consolidated into a single review page. Almost certainly of those 44,000 reviews, not all of them are going to specifically be for this product. It's just the way things are. So do utilize FakeSpot to kind of refine a lot of those reviews if you're still on the fence about stuff. But you came here for the offers, let's go for it. So straight away, Amazon US. And for Amazon US, they are one of the few regions that have actually got some semi-decent Synology offers at the moment. And this goes across both Amazon and B&H that I'll touch on in a moment. First and foremost, the DS224 Plus. It's been around for about 2.5 months, knocking around for $250. That's pretty darn good for this system that I believe rocked out the gate at 306 to 310, going by our original reviews, utilising a quad-core Intel CPU and 2 gig of DDR4 memory. There is building going on out there, can you tell? And it is a very reasonable price for a Synology NAS that is Plex ready. Yes, the CPU isn't going to blow you away. It is taking advantage of that 2019-2020 J4125 processor. But at that price point for a Synology, because remember, we're talking about DSM, that's a pretty reasonable price there. Moving forward from that, Synology's B drive, that external SSD, on the face of it, isn't going to seem like a tremendously fantastic offer for a 2 TB external SSD for 160 when you can pick up an external SSD at the moment at 2 TB for about 100 to 110. But it's the software that's integrated with it and Synology kind of moving forward on the whole B station thing to improve upon it. And as long as you're looking at this thing as a combined hardware and software solution for that B-drop facility, or combining backup for multiple devices onto a single drive on a shared network, it is a very nice little drive there, and the capacities are going to go higher soon, and the 2 TB there is a lovely little sweet spot. Is it a 15% off? I'd say more like 7 or 8. But it is still a reasonable offer for that product once you factor in the hardware and the software. Next up, we're looking at an 8-port 2.5 gigabit Ethernet switch here, which also has 10 GBE on board. Knocking around for $63.99. It didn't say nick at that time, did I? I said dollars. For that one, that is a pretty good price for an 8-port switch with a 2.5 GBE throughout and a 10 GBE port on board as well. Again, it is unmanaged. It shouldn't be a shock at that price point. And recently, and again, you can head over to Server the Home. They've done some fantastic reviews recently, testing some of these new combined 2.5 and 10G switches. And amongst those, this is an incredibly affordable alternative. We might buy one of these for the studio anyway for a potential review. And that is a very, very good price for an 8-port 2.5G and 10G switch. On top of that, there is the one that we talked about before, the NIC Giga. This is the 4x 2.5G and 2x 10G switch. And again, knocking around for $64. If we go back to my original confirmed deals article, we did see this product knocking around at quite a nifty little lower price in the US last night. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to update this page in a moment. That deal is gone. But still, nonetheless, it is a very, very well-priced switch. But not to be outdone, Sodola, who did that previous 8-port and 110G switch there, have also got their alternative rocking out the 4 times 2.5G and 2 times 10G there built into that there. A lovely little switch, and again, unmanaged, but not the end of the world. Now, if we switch over to B&H, again, B&H has got some great offers on Synology NAS right now. For a start, they've got the DS923 Plus. This is a sub $500 NAS here. And again, this is the one that's upgradable to 10GBE. It's the one that's upgradable with M2 NVMe SSD storage pools at the base. It supports SHR. It supports the entire feature set of DSM. And that is a, quite frankly, crazy town price point for that NAS, which has always lived at about the 530 to 550 nicker mark minimum. A great little price drop there on B&H. Again, all of this is linked in the description below. Moreover, from that, they've also got the DS224 Plus. With the DS224 Plus rocking a price tag of $254 on Amazon, they are trying to keep it competitive, but still remaining at exactly the same price, which gives you some idea how much of these are official pricing there. Moving forward, you've also got their more budget option at the DS223J, utilising a quad-core Realtek 1619B processor and 1 gig of DDR4 memory. This is a system we've talked about, and, you know, so we've got a video coming up on this. The DS223J in 2-bay form is probably the last time we're going to see the J series. I think Synology are almost certainly going to be phasing out the Js in the next 12 to 18 months in favour of the B Station and the BST series. So if you did want to get hold of a J series box where you don't have to be locked in with the hard drive storage like the BST 150 is going to be and the like, if you want to make sure you go for a NAS that supports third-party drives and has a greater range of applications and services in DSM before B Station comes along and kind of lowers the range of applications for those entry-level users, this is going to be the best and lowest price entry in order to jump on board that. Now moving over to QNAP, there's a few QNAP options here. Firstly, we've got our Thunderbolt 4-bay here, the 472XT, rocking out 1200 price tag there, and this is the i3 model as well, a quad-core Intel Core i3 4-bay NAS with both 10GBE and Thunderbolt on board. It's a very, very intriguing little NAS system, and indeed Thunderbolt 3 on this system with 4 bays of storage and 2 Gen 3 M2 NVMe SSD bays inside that can be used for storage pools and a Time16 PCIe slot. This is an absolute beast of a 4-bay NAS, and at that price point, if you're prepared to spend a little bit extra, it is chuffing unbeatable. Now, moving at the other end of the spectrum, you've got their more modern generation home and multimedia 4-bay NAS, the TS462 here on B&H, rocking a $374 price tag there. Remember, when we look at some of these solutions over here, well, this device here has a much more modern Intel Celeron dual-core processor inside there. It's also got Gen 3 M2 NVMe slots for pools inside. It's got a PCIe upgrade slot. It's got 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. It's got a 4K 60 frames per second HDMI port, and it's got all the apps and services of QTS rolled in. This isn't the only time you're going to see the QNAP 62 series on offer, but it's probably the best price I've seen so far globally. And finally, we've got an expansion device. We've got their hardware RAID 4-bay expansion. This is the one that's got RAID built in, so if you're looking to expand your QNAP NAS or indeed utilize just a RAID enabled USB storage box, this is going to be the one for you. Hardware RAID built in, and at $175 for a hardware RAID USB box, it's actually not too bad. But once you factor in it as a QNAP RAID expansion, that will allow you to not only expand the main storage in your QNAP, but add future storage into that single storage pool via an external device. It's pretty darn interesting at $175. Not so shabby. Let's return now here to Blighty, to the UK, and talk a little bit more about some of the deals and offers that the UK people can enjoy. Man alive, that building work outside is really kicking off, isn't it? I'm sorry how much of that is getting picked up on the mic, but hey, let's continue. So if you are based in the UK, really quickly off the bat, before we go through any of these deals here at the top of the screen, I just want to talk about something I alluded to at the start of November 2023. Synology at the moment is running a cashback program for both November and December 2023. And if you are buying from these 5 retailers here, Amazon, Scan, eBuyer, Broadband Buyer and Box, and you are looking at buying either the DS223, the DS723 Plus, the DS223J, or the DS1522 Plus, and you're including hard drives from Synology with that purchase, if you buy them all together from the same retailer, then you get cash back. You can just, and this is during Prime Day as well, if you're buying from those 5 retailers and you're buying these boxes with these hard drive bundles with them, and again, you can go for any of the Synology drives as long as they are Synology Plus drives, then going for one of these 4 boxes will either get you 20, 40, or up to $80 quid cash back from them. All you need to do is make your purchase, and again, send the details over to them on that registration form, and that's for November and December. So if ever you see those boxes on offer at these 5 places, and they are on offer by the way, do head over to Box to check that out. There's a very good way to save yourself a little bit of money, but also get cash back on top during this promo event. But let's continue. Amazon UK, I would argue, much like America, the UK and the US always seem to get the best offers. And if you come to this video from Canada, from Australia, from other parts of Europe, I will say it's a bit slim pickings for all those other regions, but we'll get onto them later on. The UK does have, as you can see from the top of the screen, some pretty reasonable offers. Straight away, QNAP, much like we saw Synology's kind of tour de force of offers in the US, in the UK, that's their place to shine. The TS264, for example, a very recently released, relatively recent, I should say, within the year, 2-bay QNAP quad-core Celeron powered system, arriving with a PCIe upgrade slot, 2 M.2 NVMe slots there, 8 gig of DDR4 memory. It is a pretty powerful 2-bay. Indeed, it is inside my best 2-bays of the year article and video that I alluded to earlier on. Knocking around at 366 quid. It's a pretty darn good price. I know that seems a lot for a 2-bay NAS, especially when we've talked about the DS224 Plus already at about 250 nicker or so. However, this is utilising a much more modern Intel Celeron processor. It's utilising 8 gig of DDR4 memory instead of 2. It's utilising a PCIe upgrade slot that the Synology doesn't. This allows you to use the M.2 NVMe slots as caching, as storage pools, as Q-tier, or for AI upgrade M2s, when that Synology had none of those features at all, or even the M2 slots at all. This has 2 times 2.5 GBE slots, when that one only has 1 GBE slot. It's just a superior hardware system overall. And although QTS isn't as evolved, arguably, and as polished as DSM, it's still a pretty darn good software. And for a powerhouse 2-bay, a very good pricing indeed. Now, moving forward, this is a NAS that I genuinely thought QNAP had stopped making. And the fact, 1, I know they're still making it, and 2, it's on offer, possibly makes this one of my favourite deals of the whole of Black Friday. This is a NAS that, in my opinion, got nowhere near the credit it deserved. The QNAP TS-H973AX. This utilises a quad-core AMD embedded Ryzen processor that's got its 8th thread as well. It also arrives with 8 gig of memory that can be upgraded to 32 gig. It arrives with ZFS software file system choice on board, so you can go QTS or QUTS. It's got 5 SATA hard drive bays, it's got 2 SATA SSD bays, and it's got 2 U.2 NVMe bays. It's also got 10 gigabit connectivity on the rear. It is a joke how well equipped this system is. It is a 9-bay system across 3 tiers of storage with 10 GBE and a couple of 2.5 gig Ethernet ports and 10 gig USB for the hell of it. This thing is a beast. It even supports ECC memory. Although it doesn't have ECC memory, you can put ECC on board. And I know it seems a lot more expensive than other NASs we've discussed, but trust me, for a triple tier storage system, this price is crazy town banana pants. And again, I recommended this NAS year on year, and I just assumed they'd stopped making it. So, really good deal there. Cannot recommend that enough. Returning to the 62 series, I said we would mention that earlier on. This is the 2-bay alternative to the fully featured 2-bay there. And again, knocking around at 296. Again, we can make comparisons against that Synology if you like for $250. This one at £296. Again, this is rocking a 4 gig for a 4 gig of memory on board. It also arrives with a dual core, more modern Celeron processor, and again, it's got a PCIe upgrade slot. It's got 2.5 GBE. It's got the M2 NVMe's inside, and it rocks for just shy of 300 Nika overall there. Again, a lovely little system. The only limitations I can really speak about is to do with the lack of memory expandability that harks back to memory shortages when some of these devices were either in development or on their second stage of production. And although it does have that on board, it's still a great NAS system overall. That building work is really getting on my tits. So now we move over to QNAP switches, something that QNAP a few years ago, a number of us were like, where are QNAP switches? And now we just take for granted that they are everywhere, and they've moved on to probably their 4th or 5th generation of these devices. And although arguably now we're starting to see way more affordable 2.5G and combined 2.5G and 10G switches in the market, I've still got to give them at least a shout out for dropping the price of their switches to meet a lot of that kind of price change there in the marketplace. I'm not going to say that this is better value than that switch we mentioned earlier on that had 4 2.5 GBE switches and 2 10 GBE switches rocking, you know, that 65 Nika price tag. This is way more expensive than that, but this is something QNAP have rolled out 2.5 years ago there, and I think at least they're going through clearance. So if you want to go for a named brand for your network switch, and you want to go for a system where you almost certainly have, in this case QNAP have a UK office, you want an in-country brand support, and you want to go for a named brand that you may meet other devices in your network environment that you trust, then if you are happy to spend a bit more, this switch is a good option. Just bear in mind, this is going to be noticeably more expensive than that unbranded kind of warranty-free device that we talked about earlier on, with this rocking out a 2-year guarantee and local support there. And the same goes, they've actually got several deals on their switches that I'm going to talk about later on, but this is the one that really stood out for the UK audience. Now, I said earlier on, Terramaster are doing deals all over the world. They are, but I will say right now, thank you very much, Microsoft Edge, who I only use for these videos for your prompt on screen. Terramaster, I would say, the ones that stand out, probably the better than any other region, the ones in the UK here. So, for example, this is their Intel Celeron 8-bay half-depth rack mount here for $719. This is rocking that same modern generation Celeron that we talked about already. It can also be upgraded to 32 gig of memory if you use their modules. It also has, if you look at the rear here, let's get that up, support of 2.5 GBE. It's got HDMI output, which is relatively rare on a rack mount device, and it supports T-RAID from Terramaster as a flexible RAID storage system to mix and match your drives, not unlike Synology hybrid RAID there. Also, TOS is rolling out their new surveillance application. They've also currently got AI supported photo recognition, multi-tier backup solutions. It's it's not as evolved as DSM or QTS, but it's still a reasonable application once you throw that in there. Also, the option of installing TrueNAS, installing UnRAID with no pushback from the brand is quite nice, to be able to buy a pre-built NAS solution and use that open source software that you want to use there. We've got their 2-bay quad-core system, go away Microsoft Edge, and again, much like the hardware we've talked about inside that 8-bay rack mount, but all compressed into this little 2-bay here, rocking around a $271 price point. I would argue, even though the Synology one that we mentioned, the DS224, is a lower price, this gives you more bang for your buck in terms of hardware. It's a quad-core N5000 series Celeron processor, 4 to 32 gig of DDR4 memory. If you use their memory modules, they say you can hit that. On top of that, it's got 2 times 2.5 GBE ports there on the rear, 60 frames per second 4K via an HDMI output there. It's just a very well put together NAS system, and again, it supports all of those apps and features of Terramaster's TOS platform. And finally, there is the 9-bay version of that, rocking that $719 price tag. So if you didn't want to go for a rack mount version, you can go, instead of an 8-bay half-depth rack mount, you can go for a 9-bay tower system there. And again, going on to the back there, same apps and features, same hardware features, everything we've discussed thus far, but arrived with 8 gig out the gate rather than 2 or 4 gig. Overall, there are, as mentioned, lots of deals going on with Terramaster, but those are the three that really stood out. I'm really gutted that the 10GB system is not on offer, the 450 series from Terramaster. No doubt that will be next year, and I have looked at some regions where some of their 10GB solutions are listed, but sadly the UK didn't get hold of the T9 450 or any of the other 450 2x10G systems available. Now, in terms of SSDs, we're going to talk about a few SSDs later on, but this is the best deal I could find. It's a Gen 4 SSD, and this is a 2TB drive. So if you're looking at upgrading a Gen 4 NAS system, your PlayStation 5, stuff like that, this is probably the cheapest I've found in the market, rocking a 92 quid price tag for 2 terabytes of Gen 4 SSD performance. That's a lovely little price point there. And if you do spend a little bit extra, you can get the heatsink version if you like. And although there have been other offers I've seen online, and as always, your WDs, your Samsung SSDs, your Seagates, all of those Gen 4 SSDs are on offer, but none of them, price per terabyte and price for Gen 4 performance, match this one here. Now, talking of price per terabyte, I've mentioned this in other videos, but if you're okay with shucking, the process of removing a drive that arrives in an external enclosure, this is actually a pretty darn good offer. 18 TB hard drive there inside this USB 3 enclosure here for $264 there. And again, I've double checked, and this drive is on. We've got a whole guide over on NAS Compares that goes through shucking and drives you can and cannot. I've created a master list there for you to go through if you want to find out which drives can be shucked. But moreover, I've looked up specifically this drive on Data Hoarder on their /Reddit. Their Reddit/data hoarder, and people have ripped this drive apart and not only found out which drive is inside, but to confirm that you're not going to need any kind of power transfer or mixer in the middle in order to take advantage of that drive. So if you want to get a real cheap 18 TB drive, this is a decent little offer overall. Finally, in terms of external drives, we've got WD's 5 TB drive here for 103 NICA, and that's a 5 TB USB drive. So if you're looking for a nice, easy backup for your NAS device to take advantage of USB copy, USB what's the word I'm looking for there? Incremental backups, that's the word I'm looking for there. Then I could cut that out, I'm not going to. If you're looking to have a USB device connected to your overall NAS system to create a local backup of the key files and folders using the backup software that your NAS includes, 5 TB for 100 NICA for a local backup drive is pretty darn good. And finally, moving ever so slightly away from Amazon, real quick, Box. Box have got a QNAP here, the TS1331 bay, a NAS that is on my best of the year for budget and cheap NASs, and they've got that quad-core 2.0 GHz ARM processor NAS with 2 GB of DDR4 memory and an inbuilt NPU AI processing management add-on on that CPU there for AI photo recognition, AI file searches, and lots of other stuff to do with surveillance for 99 quid. Ultimately, you know, a penny short of 100 NICA. It's a really good price for a 1-bay powerhouse NAS. It actually makes it, in terms of hardware, the best value NAS in the market right now until that offer ends. But let's move away from UK and move on to Greater Europe. Now, much like when I spoke about the UK offers and deals that I could find during Black Friday, it's worth highlighting that if you're in Europe, before we get on to actual deals that I found, I do want to touch on something else to do with Synology, and this is to do with the Synology store. Now, in the early stages of this year, I talked about how Synology had opened up a refurbished retail outlet on their site. It was their way to either put together or repair and officially refurbish older generation devices for sale, reducing the price significantly but maintaining the original warranty period, and a lot of those devices still support DSM to this day. Now, if you are based in Europe, I strongly recommend heading over to the page linked in the description below, synology.com/ENEU product store. And again, their store is available across different regions of the world, by the way, but it seems if you go to that one, you can get a much easier way to overlook all of them. And if you head right the way to the bottom past all these brand new products on sale in their store, you can go to the refurbished area. And in the refurbished area, much like Amazon Warehouse, which by the way is an additional 20% off during Black Friday, there you go. In In their refurbished NAS section, not only can you buy old NAS systems, but some of these systems are on sale during Black Friday, two of which are the DS218 Play and the DS118. So if we look at the DS218 Play, I'm looking right now via Germany. So for example, I'm looking at it there and it's €148 for this quad-core Realtek NAS system with 1 gig of DDR4 memory. Now to put that into perspective, although this is a 2018 generation NAS box, so technically 5 years old, if you look at the most recently released 2-bay, which is a quad-core Realtek NAS with 2 gig of DDR4 memory, this thing's €278. That is a big price difference between them. And again, if you buy the refurbished NAS system, you get to keep the full original warranty length from purchase, and it's officially refurbished. And most of these devices are basically as good as new anyway and officially signed off. The same goes when you look at the DS118. Again, a 5-year-old NAS for €118, but if you look at the current generation 1-bay, which is a quad-core Realtek with 1 gig of DDR4 memory, which is the same damn thing, only a slight upgrade on the CPU, this is €179. So a huge saving opportunity there, depending on where you are in Europe. So head over to that page, and then when you go to the product in question, let's go for the DS118. When you go there, go to shop now. You have to list which country you are in Europe. So now let's select another European location. Let's go for Denmark. Select Denmark, and then it will let you know that the region will change. And then from there, you'll be able to click shop now and find out the price in that region. So again, if you are looking at a Synology and you need to get yourself a bit of a bargain, check out that store first, because it might not be, it won't be any of the new stuff, but for some of those other regions, there are other refurbished devices available. But let's crack on. Synology Germany. If we move forward, first up we've got, Amazon Germany, we've got the Seagate Expansion 4TB. This is an external USB 4TB drive. It's not the 5TB we've talked about, but it's the best value USB drive I could find for that region. Knocking around at €102. Again, that's 4TB of USB storage. It's not the best, I would say. There are offers out there for other regions that are better than this, but it's better than most of the other drives I could find within the German region at that price tag for that kind of price per terabyte there. On top of that, talking of external storage drives, we've got this, the Orico drive. This is a drive that we did review over on YouTube only, a year ago. This is a USB 4 enclosure that allows you to take advantage of, look at that weird man up there. This allows you to take advantage of M.2 NVMe SSDs and get Thunderbolt 4 or USB 4 speeds, 40 gigabits per second. So if you're using, a Gen 3 or Gen 4 SSD that can give you, 3,000 megabytes per second, 7,000 megabytes per second, putting in even those affordable Gen 3 SSDs, which have dropped significantly in price, will allow you with this enclosure to take advantage of close to 3,000 megabytes per second performance there. And again, unlike some of the Samsungs we talked about recently with their external drives, which are really making you overpay for a USB 3 drive or a USB 3.2 Gen 2 X2 drive at 5, 10 or 20 gigabits per second. This is an enclosure that, yes, is 100 nicker, but with the price drop on M2 NVMEs and the market at Gen 3 level, you're able to really make a saving. Gen 3, you can pick up 2 TB Gen 3 SSDs for about 80 to 100 nicker at the moment. So for 200 nicker, you would have an insanely fast external SSD here, utilizing this enclosure. Cannot recommend it enough. It's still being used in my own setup. You can see it in the background of a lot of my videos during our testing phases there. Now, crucial, we talked about 2 TB SSDs on offer, and although this isn't as good as that UK offer we saw for this same drive, it's still a pretty darn price, and it was as close as I could get to that in other parts of Europe. And although this is Amazon Germany, this offer is actually available in, I believe, Amazon Italy and France as well. So again, it's a decent little offer for a Gen 4 SSD, and if you're looking forward to upgrading your PS4, maybe you've got that new slimmer version that I'm not overly keen on, then this might be something for you. Finally, heading back to QNAP, as mentioned, QNAP have been rocking their 2.5G switches, the combined 10G in both SFP and in copper, on their Black Friday offers. No, it isn't as low as the price of those unbranded switches that we talked about and Server the Home have been talking about, but still nonetheless, these are pretty decent switches. And for combined 2.5 and 10G, for a branded case and with a retailer in your region that has a head office in your region and long-term warranty, it's not too bad, personally. If that's important to you, maybe you're okay to spend a little bit extra. And finally, when it comes to Gen 4 SSDs, although that Gen 4 SSD I mentioned is still the best price per terabyte for a 2TB, if you scale things up, 250 here or 259 for a 4TB high performance drive. So this is a 7,300 megabytes per second 850X drive. That's a really good price for 4 terabytes of storage. Yes, it's not cheap, but work it out on price per terabyte, and particularly price per terabyte performance that is, you know, almost a gigabyte per second faster than that drive we just talked about. It really is a no-brainer. Now, moving forward from Germany, we can make our way into a new region here and look at France. Now, France, again, there's even fewer offers there. That's how I've kind of clustered a lot of these European offers together. They've got that 2-bay expansion rather than the 4-bay expansion device. Again, seeing a reasonable offer there, but it is a USB 10 gig expansion. If you use SSDs, you might get some of that greater performance. It's a little pricey for a hardware RAID 2-bay, but I will say as a QNAP expansion, as a nice little add-on, or to add a local backup device that's officially supported by the software to therefore make the backup or synchronization in both directions easier, it's a neat little option there. Finally, with the switches, we've got another another switch, but unlike the 2.5G and 10G switch we've mentioned, this is 1 gig. I know what you're thinking. A 5-port 1 gig switch for nigh on €20. How is that on any way an offer? It's because it's a PoE switch, and if you're running a surveillance setup with PoE cameras, you need a competent PoE switch in order to get the job done. And for €20 for a 5-port PoE switch, so €20, you've now got the sufficient networking capability to power 4 cameras in your local environment, powered over PoE, so just powered with Cat cables, which are going to be providing all of that data to this switch, and then LAN it in with your existing network on that 5th port. It's going to be really, really good to a much cleaner and convenient way to have external cameras without having to worry about mains power. And that's why this €20 1 gig switch makes my list. Now, although Terramaster, again, on offer everywhere, I will say in France, the best offer I could find in France. And indeed, this device, I didn't find on very good offers anywhere else in the world. Do check out that article I mentioned. This is the 2-bay Thunderbolt docking station. So this is the one that's got not only the ability to put in 2 hard drives or SSDs in a RAID to be connected via DAS over Thunderbolt, but on top of that, it supports daisy chaining, it supports a DisplayPort, it supports further USB connections. Ultimately, this is a docking station with 2 storage drives inside that's very portable with a low power consumption. I've talked about it on the channel before. I've already reviewed and performance tested this device before, and although I'm not in love with the look of the thing, I will say it's convenient, and I will say it's surprisingly rare in the market to find a 2-bay RAID enabled docking station. They exist, but generally they end up being either 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, 2.5 inch SATA drives inside there, or they don't give you the full range of graphical output and hardware RAID internally. So again, can't recommend that enough. And although there are other Terramaster offers there, they're not as good as this one, in France at least. And finally, we mentioned surveillance now, we're talking about external surveillance. Most of the solar-powered range from Reolink is on offer during Black Friday, and this is a camera that we have talked about and reviewed on the channel. This is a pan-tilt zoom, a pan-tilt digital zoom external camera with solar panel all combined in one for 100 Nika. And again, most external solar powered cameras, very few of them actually support pan and tilting and mechanical movement of the camera due to the power consumption and the drain that that can have. And generally they are all fixed aspects, the ones that you find. Also, this is a reasonable quality camera if you factor in the depth of field. And ultimately for 100 100 euros, it's not too shabby there as an external camera, particularly for solar. And if you weren't in love with going down that cable route I mentioned with PoE cameras, and you just want one or two static cameras, bottom of the garden, but still hopefully within the Wi-Fi range, that's a pretty darn good option. Now, heading over to Canada, I will highlight that it's, unfortunately, I've kind of saying this every year now, you guys are really getting the short end of the stick. It's not even fair, given that you've got the USA just down there, currently full of turkey and just absolutely loving their offers. It seems really mean, but I will say, at least it means, as mentioned in other videos, that at least it means your economy is strong enough that it's not going to be overly reliant on a lot of, promo days like this one, which, in the grand scheme of things, I'm sure is absolutely lovely. But I will say the offers I could find are those kind of in context good offers. So I include them, but frankly, I was on the verge of scrapping the whole of this section of the video. So, for example, Synology put their B Drive 2TB on offer. Now, I know Canadian dollars, American dollars, UK pounds, etc. conversions and currencies do differ. I get it. But 2TB for this SSD at this price, 2TB external SSD at this price, even if you factor in the currency conversions, that is just too dang expensive. This is the price of other 2TB external SSDs. And even if, as I mentioned earlier on, you factor in B-drop, you factor in B-station, you factor in all of those software and the ability to back up multiple devices over the network, even if you factor all that in, the other one was so much cheaper than this. So although technically it is on offer, and it is cheaper than it normally is in Canada to get hold of a Synology B drive, this isn't a great offer by any stretch. And if you wanted to get one, now's a good time, I guess. But if what you want to hear is it good value, no. The same goes. We're looking at the Seagate drive here, the Seagate 12TB, $274. I mean, compared to the prices I've seen online, it's all right. But again, it's not a fantastic offer once you move outside of the .ca bubble there. And again, I've looked at third-party retailers, I'm looking at some of the Best Buy and UBuy conversions as well. And of course, you can take advantage of the Synology store offers with regards to refurb in your region. But that's really it. The only place where I saw any kind of significant movement with regards to Canadian Black Friday offers within the world of data storage is once again with Terramaster. And Terramaster managed to maintain all of that pricing that I talked about, even in those regions. They didn't lower them. So 20% off was the same in all of those regions. And their prices were low enough in those regions to start with that it was actually quite effective. And I know a lot of users are not going to like going for Terramaster products as they do feel like the cheaper budget end of the spectrum. But if you're looking for a brainless NAS box, or as a NAS to act as part of your 321 as a distant NAS over here to run a backup towards, and you're not going to be overly reliant on the software, it's just got to be a target, or you wanted to install UnRAID or TrueNAS, maybe you picked up one of those UnRAID license discounts that I mentioned at the start of the video, they're not that bad. And ultimately, all of it, their Thunderbolt devices, their USB devices, their docking stations, their 10G NASs, everything is on offer in the Canadian region there. And the same goes if you want to move over to, say, Australia. Australia have got some offers, but again, much like Canada, they just seem to have that kind of distance tax. I'm not sure. For example, we talked about SSDs earlier and them getting cheaper, and the cheapest Gen 4 SSD I could find was a 1TB at $67 there in Australia. And even when you factor in the currency conversions, that's a really good price for a 1TB, I would say. It's still not, world beating, but within region, it's still pretty darn good. And it is a Gen 4 second tier SSD. That means it's utilizing the E16 rather than the E18 controller, so you're going to see that performance dip, but nevertheless it's a nice SSD to have. And if you're looking at upgrading your storage system, but you want to make sure whether it is for caching or storage pools, you want to make sure that the SSD, if you upgrade your NAS, will still give you good performance. It's a decent enough option to go for there. Same goes, like the pricing for the DS223 here, the Realtek enabled one, is technically an offer, and I've ran it through Camel and the like, but it's still not a fantastic one out there, and it's the best. It was probably the only realistic Synology offer that I could find in AU Amazon. So really sorry. I mean, I really tried. If you're a QNAP user, unsurprisingly, there are those switches. Clearly, they've realised those switches have got to go now that there are more budget options out there. And hopefully that means that QNAP will continue in the switch game with cheaper alternatives for 2.5 GBE now that the price and the threshold for 2.5G and 10G has dropped so significantly. But they are seeing those discounts, as we've seen already. Finally, they've got their external USB drives here. For example, this is the 4TB that I could find, and 4TB for $204 again doesn't seem like much, particularly earlier on when we were talking about 5TB for about $100. But once you factor in local currencies and you factor in the availability for external USB drives, that's not too shabby a price within context for a branded storage drive. And again, that includes the rescue recovery, data recovery services as well. Same goes, 1TB, for example, here. Once you make that comparison, this isn't an offer, by the way. A 1TB of WD My Passport is $126. And once you go through and look at other 1TB drives, you realise that $204 for 4TB within the context of the region isn't actually that bad, but again, only within that context, that economy, that pricing structure. But there you go. Those are the Black Friday promos and offers globally that I could find in data storage that I would personally buy. Again, all of the offers that I've talked about today are already live on this page that I'm scrolling through in the background here. And I'll be adding the ones that I found in the last hour to 2 hours that I've talked about in the video to that list. We'll be updating this article throughout the course of the day and probably over for Cyber Monday as well. I don't know if we're going to do a Cyber Monday video. We might. If there's any other decent reasonable offers to talk about, we'll add them there. And of course, as the US starts to wake up, maybe some other offers and promos will arrive, in which case I'll dump them in the link description, or dump them in the comments, or update that article appropriately. As always, if you are utilizing NAS Compares, we do not put ads on this video. It doesn't have monetization, but those links are affiliated. Also, if you need some further support, we've got our free advice section on the right hand side of the page. Just fill out those details to find out, get some free advice to help you with your data storage solution that best suits your needs. On top of that, if you head over to Ko-Fi, you can take advantage of expedited support via the fast track inquiries, or you can go ahead and take advantage of the membership tiers for expedited support, access on monthly Zooms, and have more control over what we do on the channel and make sure that we do things the way you want. You can also access our Discord pages if you choose. On the Discord, my colleague Eddie will be recommending further deals over on our Discord throughout the course of today as he finds them. On top of that, you can go ahead over to Ask.NAS Compares, where they're also going to be published, and of course take advantage of the Black Friday storage deals offer banner here, which allows you to take advantage of all of the offers that are found and crawled through and added to that page over time. And you can vote on them, go to them straight away, and just find out whether they are any good. And this page is getting all the offers moving around all of the time. But apart from that, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you have a great Black Friday, and of course, have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you next time.